The Galactic Concord had ruled the stars for 11,000 years. 12 different species had come together long ago. They had built a civilization that stretched across 1,000,000 worlds. They had 300 billion people living under their rule. They had faced many dangers before. They had fought against mad machines that tried to kill everything. They had closed holes in space that led to dark places. They had survived diseases that could kill entire planets. And they had won every time. So when the young species from a small planet called Earth refused to obey them, the leaders of the Concord were not worried. They were not scared. They were not even angry. They were amused. High Arbiter Velkoth sat on his throne and smiled. He was a Draelith, a species with skin like glass that showed colors based on their feelings. Right now, his skin was bright amber. This meant he felt very confident, very sure of himself. The Draelith had been the leaders of the Concord for 3,000 years. They had never lost a war. They had never faced an enemy they could not crush. The humans were just another small problem that needed to be fixed. Velkoth looked at the reports on his display screen. The humans had only discovered how to travel faster than light 80 years ago. Before that, they had been stuck on their single planet like insects in a jar. In 80 years, they had built perhaps 200 warships. The Concord had millions. The humans had colonies on maybe 50 worlds. The Concord controlled 1,000,000. The difference was like comparing a single drop of water to an ocean. The problem had started 6 months ago. The humans had built a colony on a planet called Kepler 442b. This planet sat in a region of space that the Concord wanted. More importantly, the planet had large deposits of quantum lattice crystals. These crystals were rare and valuable. The Concord used them to build their most advanced technology. The Concord had told the humans to leave. The humans had said no. This was not acceptable. Velkoth pressed a button on his throne. His image would now be sent to every human ship, every human colony, every human screen in existence. He wanted them all to hear this. "I am High Arbiter Velkoth of the Draelith hegemony," he said. His voice was smooth and cold. "I speak for the Galactic Concord and its 12-member species. I speak for 11,000 years of civilization. I speak for the law that governs all intelligent life in this galaxy." He paused to let his words sink in. "Your species has built a colony on the planet you call Kepler 442b. This planet is within Concord territory. You do not have permission to be there. You were told to leave. You refused." His skin flickered with colors of authority and power. "By the laws of the Galactic Concord, I hereby give you one final chance. You have 30 of your Earth days to remove all humans from Kepler 442b. Take your buildings, take your machines, take everything, and leave." He leaned forward on his throne. "If you do not leave, then a state of total war will exist between humanity and the Galactic Concord. We will take the planet by force. We will destroy anyone who resists, and we will continue until your species learns its place in the order of things." He smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "I advise you to make the smart choice. You cannot win this fight. No one has ever defeated the Concord. No one ever will. Be wise, be humble, and survive." The transmission ended. Velkoth turned to his advisors. There were 12 of them, one from each member species of the Concord. They all looked pleased. They all expected the humans to run away like frightened animals. "They will leave," said Admiral Crixal, a Velthari warrior whose body was covered in crystal-like scales. "They are primitive. They are weak. They know they cannot fight us. Perhaps we should destroy a few of their ships anyway," suggested Counselor Mayeth, a Vordani whose tentacles moved in patterns of amusement, "to teach them proper respect." "That will not be necessary," Velkoth said. "They will surrender. They have no other choice." He was very, very wrong. On the planet Earth, deep beneath the mountains of a country called Switzerland, the United Nations Space Command had its headquarters. This was where the leaders of humanity's military forces worked. This was where decisions about war and peace were made. The room was large and circular. Giant screens covered the walls, showing maps of human space, positions of ships, and information about the Concord. 200 officers sat at their stations, working on computers and talking quietly with each other. At the center of the room stood Admiral Yuki Tanaka. She was 63 years old. Her hair was gray and cut short. Her face was lined with wrinkles from years of stress and responsibility. Her eyes were dark brown. and they had seen terrible things. She had fought in 3 wars already. She had watched friends die. She had given orders that sent young soldiers to their deaths. She had also buried 3 of her own children. All of them had been soldiers. All of them had died fighting for humanity. Admiral Tanaka did not fear death. She had seen too much of it to be afraid anymore. What she feared was something else. She feared failing the people who depended on her. She feared letting humanity down. She watched the recording of Velkoth's message 3 times. She studied his face, his body language, his words. She saw his confidence. She saw his pride. She saw his complete certainty that humans would do exactly what he expected. She also saw his weakness. He did not take humanity seriously. He saw humans as primitives, as children, as insects to be stepped on. He had not bothered to study them. He had not bothered to understand them. He thought that numbers were all that mattered. He was wrong. Admiral Tanaka pressed the button that would send her response to the entire galaxy. She took a deep breath and began to speak. "This is Admiral Yuki Tanaka of the United Nations Space Command. I speak for the human species." Her voice was calm, almost gentle, like a grandmother telling a bedtime story. "High Arbiter Velkoth, we have received your message. We have discussed it with our leaders. We have made our decision." She paused. "No." The single word hung in the air. "We will not leave Kepler 442b. We will not abandon our people. We will not run away because you told us to. That colony is our home now. Those crystals in the ground belong to us. If you want them, you will have to come and take them." She took a step forward, and her eyes grew hard. "But before you do, High Arbiter, let me give you some information. Free of charge. Consider it a gift from humanity to the Concord." She clasped her hands behind her back. "You have studied our ships. You have counted our weapons. You have measured our technology and found it primitive. You think you know everything about us. But you are wrong. You have missed the most important thing." Her voice grew softer, but somehow more dangerous. "You do not know what we are." She began to walk slowly, her boots clicking on the metal floor. "We are the species that started as small, weak animals on a planet that was trying to kill us. Everything on our world was dangerous. The weather wanted to freeze us, or burn us. The oceans wanted to drown us. The ground shook and split open beneath our feet. Predators hunted us. Diseases attacked us. We were soft. We were slow. We had no claws, no fangs, no armor." She stopped walking, "and we conquered everything. Every predator that hunted us is now either our pet or extinct. Every disease that attacked us has been beaten by our medicine. Every danger our world threw at us, we overcame, not because we were strong. We became strong because we refused to die." The screens behind her flickered, showing images from human history. Wars, battles, soldiers charging into impossible situations. We are the species that invented fire, then used it to reshape our world. We split the atom and used it to build bombs that could destroy cities. We flew to our moon on rockets that were less powerful than your children's toys. We did this not because it was easy, but because we wanted to. She smiled, but it was not a warm smile. "We are the species that fights wars against itself. We have killed billions of our own kind. We have burned our own cities, poisoned our own land, nearly destroyed ourselves 100 times over. And every time, we came back stronger. Every time, we learned something new." The images changed, showing human soldiers from different eras. Knights in armor, soldiers in trenches, pilots in cockpits, astronauts in spacesuits. You look at our history and see chaos. You see violence and madness. You see primitives killing each other over nothing. But you miss the truth. She pointed at the screen. Every war taught us something. Every battle made us better. We have been practicing the art of killing for 10,000 years. We have turned it into a science. We have studied every way that intelligent beings can hurt each other, and we have mastered them all. She turned back to face the camera directly. "You have never faced anything like us. Your wars have been polite, organized, limited. You fight until one side agrees to surrender, and then you stop. You have rules about how to kill each other properly." Her smile grew colder. "We do not have those rules. When we fight to win. We do not care about honor. We do not care about tradition. We care about survival, and we will do whatever it takes to survive." She took a final step toward the camera, so close that her face filled the screen. So here is my warning to you, High Arbiter Velkoth. Here is my gift to the Galactic Concord. If you come to our worlds with weapons, we will fight you. If you destroy our ships, we will build more. If you kill our soldiers, more will take their place. If you burn our colonies, we will burn yours in return. Her eyes seemed to look directly into the soul of every being watching. We are not brave. We are not noble. We are not heroes. We are survivors. We are the children of a death world. And we have learned that the universe does not care about fairness or justice. The universe only respects one thing: the willingness to do whatever is necessary. She nodded slowly. So congratulations, High Arbiter. You just declared war on the most dangerous species the galaxy has ever known. You have no idea what is coming, but you will learn. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Everyone learns. Eventually, the transmission ended. In the command center, the 200 officers sat in complete silence. They had all heard rumors about Admiral Tanaka. They said she was cold. They said she was ruthless. They said she had ice water in her veins instead of blood. Now they understood that the rumors were true. Lieutenant Sarah Chen, a young officer who had been assigned to the command center only 2 months ago, raised her hand. Admiral? Permission to speak? Tanaka turned to her. Go ahead, Lieutenant. Did we just declare war on the entire galaxy? Tanaka nodded. Yes, we did. Can we win? The Admiral was quiet for a moment. She looked around the room at the young faces watching her. Most of them had never seen real combat. Most of them had grown up in a time of peace. They had joined the military because they wanted to explore the stars, not fight wars. Now they would have to fight the biggest war humanity had ever faced. I do not know if we can win, Tanaka said honestly. They have more ships than we do. They have more soldiers. They have more worlds. By every normal measure, they should crush us easily. She walked to the center of the room. But we are not normal. We are humans. We have been fighting against impossible odds since we were chasing deer with pointed sticks. We have survived ice ages and plagues and nuclear weapons. We have conquered every challenge our world could throw at us. She looked at each officer in turn. The Concord thinks this will be easy. They think we will see their fleet and run away. They think we will count their ships and surrender. They do not understand us at all. She gestured at the screens showing human history. Our ancestors fought against enemies bigger than themselves. They fought against predators with teeth and claws while they had only rocks and fire. They fought against nature itself, and they won. Not because they were stronger, because they were smarter, because they were more determined, because they refused to give up. Her voice grew louder. We are the children of those ancestors. Their blood flows in our veins. Their spirit lives in our hearts. They survived impossible challenges so that we could be here, today, facing this moment. She raised her fist. We did not choose this war, but we will not run from it. We will fight with everything we have. We will use every trick, every strategy, every weapon at our disposal. We will make them pay for every inch of space. We will make them bleed for every victory. The officers were sitting up straighter now. Their eyes were brighter. They were not scared anymore. They were ready. The Concord has ruled the galaxy for 11,000 years. They have never been challenged. They have never been hurt. They have never known fear. Admiral Tanaka smiled. And this time it was a real smile. The smile of a warrior who knew exactly what she was doing. It is time for them to learn. Across the galaxy, the message spread. The 12 species of the Concord watched the human admiral speak. Most of them laughed. The humans were clearly insane. They were going to fight a war they could not possibly win. It would be amusing to watch them try. But a few beings did not laugh. A few beings looked at Admiral Tanaka's eyes and saw something that made them uncomfortable. Something that reminded them of old stories. Stories about creatures that should not exist. Creatures that came from impossible places and did impossible things. Creatures that did not know how to surrender. High Arbiter Velkoth was not one of these beings. He watched the human response and felt only contempt. The woman was clearly trying to scare him with fancy words and dramatic speeches. It would not work. He had commanded fleets that had conquered hundreds of species. The humans would be just another line in the history books. Prepare the 14th Expeditionary Fleet, he ordered. 400 ships should be enough. We will take their colony and teach them a lesson they will never forget. His advisors bowed and left to carry out his orders. Velkoth sat back on his throne and smiled. The war would be over in a few weeks. The humans would learn their place, and the Concord would continue to rule the galaxy, as it always had. He had no idea how wrong he was. He had no idea that in 100 years, the galaxy would tell stories about this moment. Stories about the day an arrogant empire made the worst mistake in its 11,000-year history. Stories about the day they woke up the sleeping monster. Stories about the day they declared war on humanity. And lost. But that was all in the future. For now, Velkoth was confident. His fleet was powerful. His cause was just. His victory was certain. Far away, in her command center beneath the mountains of Switzerland, Admiral Tanaka was also confident. But her confidence was different. It was the confidence of someone who knew exactly how dangerous her species could be. It was the confidence of someone who had spent her entire life preparing for this moment. She looked at the screens showing the locations of conquered forces. She looked at the reports about their technology and their tactics. She looked at the maps of human space, with all its colonies and stations and outposts. Then she began to plan. The Concord thought they were going to war against a primitive species with a few hundred ships. They were wrong. They were going to war against humanity. And humanity had been getting ready for this fight since the first human looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. They had been building weapons, training soldiers, making plans. They had studied every war ever fought, from the battles of ancient civilizations to the conflicts of the modern age. They were ready. The galaxy just did not know it yet. 3 weeks after the declaration of war, the 14th Expeditionary Fleet of the Galactic Concord arrived at Kepler 442b. 400 warships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. They were the pride of Concord military power. Each ship was massive, covered in gleaming metal and bristling with weapons. Their shields could stop almost any attack. Their cannons could destroy cities from orbit. Fleet Admiral Crixall stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Victory. He was a Velthari, a species known for their skill in battle. His body was covered in crystal-like scales that glittered under the ship's lights. He had fought in many wars and won them all. He expected this one to be the easiest victory of his career. Long-range sensors are active, reported his second-in-command, a younger Velthari named Threx. Scanning the system now, Crixall nodded and waited. He expected to see a small human fleet waiting to defend the colony. Maybe 30 or 40 ships. Perhaps they would fight. Perhaps they would surrender. Either way, it did not matter. 400 Concord warships could handle anything the humans could offer. The scan results came back. Threx stared at his screen in confusion. Admiral, I am not detecting any human ships. None at all? No, sir. The colony is still there. Power readings show it is fully occupied, but there are no ships in orbit, no orbital defenses, nothing. Crixall felt a small twinge of unease. This was not what he expected. The humans had been so defiant in their response. Their admiral had promised to fight. Why would they abandon their colony without a fight? Perhaps they realized they could not win, suggested Threx. Perhaps they left their civilians behind as a gesture of surrender. Perhaps. Crixall was not convinced. Something felt wrong. He had hunted prey across a dozen worlds, and he had learned to trust his instincts. His instincts were telling him to be careful. Launch reconnaissance fighters, he ordered. 40 ships. Have them scan every corner of this system. I want to know exactly what we are dealing with before we approach the planet. Yes, Admiral. 40 small fighter craft launched from the fleet's carriers. They spread out in a search pattern, their sensors scanning everything around them. The pilots were young Velthari, eager to prove themselves against the primitive humans. They pushed their ships to maximum speed, racing through the empty space of the system. They never saw what killed them. The mines had been placed months ago, long before the war started, long before the Concord had even made their demands. The humans had known this moment would come, and they had prepared for it. The mines were small. Each one was no bigger than a human fist. They were made of carbon fiber and ceramic materials, not metal. They had no power source, no energy signature, nothing that the Concord sensors were designed to detect. They just floated in space, invisible and waiting, like seeds of death scattered across the void. When the fighter craft flew past them, the mines woke up. Simple sensors detected the engine heat of the fighters. Simple computers calculated the distance and speed, And simple explosive charges did what explosives do best. 40 fighters became 40 bright explosions in the span of 3 seconds. On the bridge of the eternal victory, alarm started screaming. "Admiral, we have lost contact with all reconnaissance fighters." Crixall felt his scales tighten against his body. "What happened?" "Unknown, sir. They were destroyed almost simultaneously. There was no warning, no enemy contact, nothing. They just exploded." Before Crixall could respond, the second wave of mines activated. These were bigger than the first ones, and unlike the first ones, they could move. Small engines fired, and thousands of objects came racing toward the Concorde fleet from every direction at once. They had been hiding in the asteroid field that surrounded the outer edges of the system, waiting patiently for their moment. The fleet's point defense systems came online immediately. Thousands of small cannons began firing, trying to destroy the incoming objects. Explosions filled the space around the ships as mines were hit and destroyed. But there were too many of them. They were too small. They were too fast. The mines that made it through struck the shields of the Concorde vessels. Each individual explosion was small, almost insignificant. But there were thousands of explosions happening at once. The shields flickered and shook under the assault. Some of the weaker ships lost their shields completely. And then the third wave came. These were not mines. These were missiles. Real weapons, hiding in the asteroid field, waiting for the mines to weaken the shields. They had been launched from hidden bases that the humans had built years ago, prepared for this exact moment. The missiles were fast and smart. They dodged the point defense fire. They found the gaps in the shields, and they hit their targets with terrible precision. 17 Concorde ships died in the first volley. They exploded like stars going supernova. Their crews vaporized in an instant. Another 30 ships were badly damaged, their shields gone, and their hulls cracked. Crixall could not believe what was happening. This was supposed to be an easy victory. This was supposed to be a simple operation against a primitive enemy. Instead, he was watching his fleet being torn apart by weapons he could not even see. "All ships, advance," he roared. "Find those launchers and destroy them. Move." The fleet surged forward, desperate to escape the killing field. More missiles came, and more ships died. Point defense systems worked overtime, filling space with defensive fire. Slowly, painfully, the Concorde ships pushed through the minefield and located the hidden missile launchers. The launchers were destroyed one by one. The attack stopped. The immediate danger was over, but the damage was done. Crixall looked at the casualty report and felt his scales turn pale. 93 ships destroyed, nearly a quarter of his fleet, wiped out before they had even seen the enemy. They had not fired a single shot at a human ship. They had not even seen a human ship. They had been attacked by machines, by automated defenses, by weapons that had been waiting for them in the darkness. "Admiral," Threx said quietly. "What do we do now?" Crixall took a deep breath. He could retreat. He could call for reinforcements. That would be the smart thing to do. But he was Velthari. His people did not retreat. His people did not admit weakness. And he had lost too many soldiers to leave without completing his mission. "We continue," he said. "We take that planet, and we make the humans pay for every ship they destroyed." The remaining ships approached Kepler 442b. This time, they were careful. They scanned every piece of debris. They destroyed every asteroid that looked suspicious. They moved slowly, but they moved forward. When they finally reached orbit around the planet, they found the colony waiting for them. Buildings and farms and roads spread across the green surface of the world. Power signatures indicated that people were still there. Thousands of humans, living their lives as if there was no war happening above their heads. "Prepare landing forces," Crixall ordered. 500,000 troops, full combat gear. We take the colony and eliminate all resistance. The landing operation began. Massive transport ships descended through the atmosphere, carrying soldiers from 6 different Concorde species. They were the finest warriors the galaxy had to offer. They had trained for years. They had the best weapons and armor. They expected to crush the human defenders within hours. They landed on the outskirts of the main human settlement, expecting to face enemy soldiers and defensive positions. Instead, they found empty streets and abandoned buildings. The colonists had vanished. "Where did they go?" demanded Ground Commander Veloz, a Draelith officer whose skin flickered with confusion. There were thousands of life signs here minutes ago. They went underground, sir, reported one of his scouts. There are tunnel entrances everywhere. The humans have dug into the planet like animals. Veloz did not like this. Fighting in tunnels was dangerous and difficult. The advantages of superior numbers and firepower meant less in tight spaces. But he had his orders. He had to secure the colony. Send teams into the tunnels, he ordered. Find the humans and capture them. Use non-lethal force if possible. We want prisoners. Thousands of soldiers entered the tunnel network beneath the colony. They moved carefully, their weapons ready, their sensors scanning for any sign of the enemy. The tunnels seemed to go on forever. They twisted and turned, branching off in dozens of directions. The walls were rough stone, carved out by human machines over the past 20 years. The humans had been digging since the day they arrived on this planet. The first attack came without warning. A group of Concord soldiers was moving through a narrow passage when the walls themselves seemed to explode. Hidden doors burst open, and human soldiers poured out. They were wearing simple armor and carrying weapons that fired solid metal projectiles instead of energy beams. The Concord soldiers had shields that could stop plasma bolts and laser fire. Their technology was designed to deflect energy weapons, the standard armaments of galactic civilization. But bullets were not energy weapons. Bullets were just pieces of metal moving very fast. They passed through the energy shields like the shields were not even there. 20 Concord soldiers died in the first 5 seconds. The human soldiers did not stay to fight. They fired their weapons, threw explosive grenades, and vanished back into the hidden passages before the Concord troops could respond. By the time reinforcements arrived, the attackers were gone. This pattern repeated itself throughout the tunnel network. Human soldiers would appear suddenly, attack with brutal efficiency, and disappear before anyone could stop them. They knew every passage, every hiding spot, every trick that the tunnels could offer. They had been living in these tunnels for years, preparing for exactly this situation. The Concord soldiers tried to adapt. They brought heavy weapons to blast through walls. They used sensors to detect movement ahead. They sent drones to scout the passages before soldiers entered them. Nothing worked. The humans were always one step ahead. The heavy weapons caused tunnel collapses that killed Concord soldiers. The sensors were fooled by decoys and false signals. The drones were destroyed by simple traps. Wires stretched across passages that would slice them in half. Every intersection was a kill zone. Every corridor was a potential death trap. Every shadow might hide a human soldier waiting to attack. By the end of the first day, the Concord had lost 40,000 troops. By the end of the first week, that number had tripled. The humans took casualties too, but not nearly as many. For every human soldier killed, 10 Concord soldiers died. The humans fought differently than any enemy the Concord had ever faced. They did not try to hold territory. They did not try to win decisive battles. They just kept attacking, kept killing, kept making the Concord pay for every step forward. Ground Commander Veloz sent desperate reports to Admiral Crixal in orbit. He needed more soldiers. He needed better weapons. He needed help. Crixal did not have help to give. His fleet was still recovering from the mine attack. His remaining ships were busy defending against occasional raids by small human craft that appeared from nowhere, launched a few missiles, and vanished before they could be caught. He had studied many species. He had fought many wars. But he had never seen anything like this. The Concord armies were trained for ordered, disciplined combat. They were trained to form lines and advance together. They were trained to use their superior technology to overwhelm enemy positions. They were trained to fight fair. The humans did not fight fair. They attacked at night, when Concord soldiers were tired. They attacked during meals, when soldiers had put down their weapons. They attacked during shift changes, when units were disorganized. They set traps that killed soldiers hours after the humans had left the area. They poisoned water supplies. They spread false information that led units into ambushes. Every dirty trick in the book, and many that were not in any book, the humans used them all, and they did it with a kind of cold efficiency that was terrifying. This was not desperate resistance. This was not brave but doomed defiance. This was calculated, professional warfare, executed by people who knew exactly what they were doing. One of Veloz's officers captured a wounded human soldier during a raid. The human was a young woman, maybe 25 years old by human standards. She had been shot in the leg and could not escape with her unit. Velos interrogated her personally. He wanted to understand these creatures who fought so strangely. "Why do you keep fighting?" he asked through his translator device. "You cannot win. We have more soldiers, more ships, more everything. Why do you not surrender?" The human woman looked at him with calm eyes. She was in pain, but she did not show it. "Do you know what my grandfather did during something called World War II?" she asked. Velos did not understand. "What is World War II?" "A war we fought against ourselves. About 150 years ago. Millions of people died. My grandfather was captured by the enemy. They put him in a prison camp. They starved him. They beat him. They told him every day that his side was losing, that there was no hope, that he should give up." She smiled slightly. "He never gave up. He escaped from that camp 3 times. They caught him each time and beat him worse. He escaped a 4th time and made it home. He lived to be 93 years old. He told me stories about that camp until the day he died." She looked directly into Velos's eyes. "That is what humans do. We do not surrender just because things are hard. We do not give up just because the odds are against us. We keep fighting until we win, or until we die. There is no third option." Velos stared at her for a long moment. Then he ordered her taken to the medical bay. He did not know what else to do with her. That night, she escaped. She killed 2 guards with a knife she had hidden somewhere on her body and vanished into the tunnels. The Concord never found her again. After 3 weeks of ground combat, Admiral Krixal made a decision that he had never expected to make. He sent a message to High Arbiter Velkoth, requesting reinforcements. Not asking, requesting, almost begging. "The humans are not what we expected," he reported. "They fight like no enemy I have ever faced. They use tactics that our soldiers are not trained to counter. They have prepared this planet for war in ways we did not anticipate. I need more troops, more ships, and different weapons. We are not losing, but we are not winning either. This war will take longer than anyone expected." Far away, in the throne room of the Concord's capital, High Arbiter Velkoth received this message. For the first time since the war began, his skin did not show the amber colors of confidence. For the first time, he began to wonder if he had made a mistake, but he pushed that thought aside. It was impossible. The Concord had ruled the galaxy for 11,000 years. They could not be challenged by a species that had only been traveling among the stars for 8 decades. This was just a temporary setback, a minor difficulty that would be overcome. He would send more ships. He would send more soldiers. He would overwhelm the humans with pure numbers and firepower. It would work. It had to work. The alternative was unthinkable. On Kepler 442b, in a hidden command center deep beneath the planet's surface, the human colonists continued their fight. They had lost soldiers too. They had buried friends and family members. They knew they could not hold the planet forever, but they did not need to hold it forever. They just needed to hold it long enough for the message to spread across the galaxy, long enough for the other species of the Concord to see what was happening, long enough for everyone to understand that humanity was not like other primitive species, long enough for the galaxy to learn fear. The commander of the Colonial Defense Forces was a man named James Wilson. He was 50 years old, a veteran of conflicts on 3 different planets. He had been planning this defense for 5 years. Since the first day the Concord had shown interest in Kepler 442b, he sat in his command center, watching the tactical displays that showed the ongoing battle above and around him. He knew the numbers. He knew how many soldiers he had lost. He knew how many he would still lose before this was over. He also knew something that the Concord did not know. This was not humanity's main defense. This was not even close to their full strength. This was just the first test, the opening move in a much larger game. On Earth and the other human worlds, factories were building ships. Training camps were creating soldiers. Scientists were developing new weapons. The entire human species was preparing for war on a scale that the galaxy had never seen. The Concord thought they were fighting a small colony. They were actually fighting the beginning of a storm, and the storm was just getting started. The war had been going on for 3 months now. The Concord had sent 2 more fleets to Kepler 442b. They had lost hundreds of ships to mines, missiles, and surprise attacks. They had landed over 1 million soldiers on the planet's surface. Nearly half of them were dead, and the humans were still fighting. High Arbiter Velkoth could no longer ignore the situation. Something was very wrong. The greatest military power in the galaxy was struggling against a species that should have been crushed in the first week. This made no sense. This was not how wars were supposed to work. He called a meeting of the Council of 12. All the leaders of the Concord's member species gathered in the great chamber where galactic law was decided. They sat in their assigned places, arranged in a circle according to the ancient traditions. Velkoth stood at the center of the circle and addressed them. "We have a problem," he said. His skin was darker now, showing stress and frustration instead of confidence. "The war with the humans is not proceeding as expected. I have asked our scholars to study this species in detail. Today, they will present their findings." He stepped aside, and a holographic figure appeared in the center of the chamber. This was Scholar Malus, 7, a Synthari artificial intelligence who had spent decades studying primitive species. Her form was that of a tall, slender humanoid made entirely of light. "Thank you, High Arbiter," she said. Her voice was calm and precise. "I have conducted a comprehensive analysis of the human species. What I have found is concerning." She waved her hand, and images appeared in the air around her. The first image showed a planet, blue oceans, green land, white clouds, Earth. This is the human homeworld. At first glance, it appears to be a pleasant, hospitable world. This is incorrect. Earth is, by any reasonable standard, a death trap. She zoomed in on different parts of the planet. The gravity is significantly higher than the galactic average. Humans evolved to carry their body weight in a gravitational field that would exhaust most other species. This makes them physically stronger and more durable than their size would suggest. The image changed to show storms, volcanoes, and earthquakes. The climate is dangerously unstable. Temperatures can vary by over 100 degrees between regions. Massive storms regularly devastate large areas. The ground shakes and splits open without warning. Volcanoes spew molten rock into the atmosphere. Another image. The sun, blazing with radiation. Their star bombards the planet with harmful radiation. The only protection is a thin layer of gases in the atmosphere. If this layer is damaged, the surface becomes uninhabitable. The humans have already damaged it significantly with their own industrial activities. She showed images of oceans, with massive waves and deep trenches. 70% of the planet is covered in water that is chemically aggressive and thermally unstable. It can freeze solid in some regions and boil in others. Creatures live in this water that can kill a human in seconds. The images changed again, showing animals, lions, sharks, bears, snakes, insects. The other life forms on Earth are equally dangerous. Large predators that can tear humans apart. Small creatures whose venom can stop a human heart. Parasites that live inside human bodies and consume them from within. Microscopic organisms that cause diseases capable of killing millions. The council members were growing uncomfortable. They had seen dangerous worlds before, but nothing quite like this. Now, Scholar Malus 7 continued, "Consider this. Humans evolved on this world. They did not just survive there, they conquered it. Every predator that once hunted them is now either their pet, their food, or extinct. They have changed the climate, reshaped the land, and altered the very genetics of other species to serve their needs." She paused to let this sink in. They did this without advanced technology. They did this with stone tools, fire, and their own intelligence. By the time they developed civilization, they had already proven themselves to be the most adaptable and persistent life form on their planet. The holographic display changed again. Now it showed scenes from human history, battles, wars, destruction. But the dangers of their world are not the most important thing about humans. The most important thing is what they did to each other. She showed armies marching, cities burning, nuclear explosions. In their recorded history, humans have killed approximately 1 billion of their own kind. They have fought wars over territory, resources, ideas, and sometimes over nothing at all. They have developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet, and then built tens of thousands of those weapons. They have come close to extinction multiple times because of conflicts among themselves. Counselor Dreth, a Moldari whose body was covered in moving patches of fungal tissue, raised a tendril. This suggests they are self-destructive and unstable. Should this not be a weakness we can exploit? That is what I thought at first. Scholar Malus 7 admitted. But I was wrong. Their internal conflicts are not a weakness. They are the source of their greatest strength. She changed the display to show the progression of human technology over time. Observe. In the past 200 years, humans have gone from riding animals for transportation to flying machines that can leave their atmosphere. They went from sending messages by hand to instant communication across their entire planet. They went from simple chemical explosives to weapons that split atoms. The rate of change shown in the display was staggering. This is the fastest technological advancement ever recorded for any species. And the primary driver of this advancement has been war. Each conflict forced them to develop new technologies to survive. Each war made them smarter, more creative, more dangerous. She showed specific examples. Aircraft developed during one war, computers developed during another. Nuclear power, radar, antibiotics, rockets, communications, satellites, all of them born from human conflicts. They have been practicing the art of war for thousands of years. They have made it into a science. They study it in schools. They write books about it. They train their children in it from a young age. The display showed military academies, strategy games, war movies, history lessons. Other species go to war occasionally. When diplomacy fails, humans go to war constantly. It is part of their culture, their entertainment, their very identity. They have developed every possible strategy, tactic, and technique for killing each other. And now they are using all of that knowledge against us. High Arbiter Velkoth spoke up. You are saying they are dangerous because they fight among themselves? I am saying they are dangerous because fighting among themselves has made them incredibly good at fighting. Consider, our soldiers are trained to fight against enemies who use similar tactics, similar weapons, similar strategies. We have rules of engagement. We have codes of honor. We have accepted methods of warfare that all civilized species follow. She paused. Humans have no such limitations. They have fought enemies who used every possible method of warfare. They have faced opponents who broke every rule, who used every dirty trick, who showed no mercy. They have learned that in war, there is only winning and losing often means extinction. She displayed images of the fighting on Kepler 442b, Concorde soldiers being ambushed in tunnels, ships being destroyed by hidden weapons, traps claiming victims long after the humans who set them had moved on. What we are seeing on Kepler 442b is a small sample of human military capability. They are using guerrilla tactics because they are outnumbered. But do not mistake this for desperation. These are proven strategies from their own history. They have used these methods against themselves for centuries. They know exactly what they are doing. Counselor Velis of the Ardrani, a species that resembled tall birds with 4 wings, clicked her beak in irritation. This is all very interesting, but it does not change the facts. We have millions of ships. They have hundreds. We can simply overwhelm them with numbers. Can we? Scholar Malus 7 asked. Let me show you something else. The display changed to show human industry. Factories producing weapons, shipyards building vessels, training facilities creating soldiers. Since the war began, human production of military equipment has increased by 300%. They are converting civilian factories to military production. They are training soldiers at an unprecedented rate. They are building new ships faster than we are destroying them. She zoomed in on specific facilities. They are also developing new weapons. Our intelligence reports indicate at least a dozen major weapons programs currently in progress. We do not know what these weapons are, but based on human history, we should expect them to be innovative and devastating. She turned to face the council directly. Humans have a concept they call total war. It means the complete mobilization of a society for military purposes. Every factory becomes a weapons plant. Every civilian becomes a potential soldier. Every resource is dedicated to the war effort. They have done this before. In their own internal conflicts, they are doing it again now. The display showed Earth, but transformed. The peaceful-looking world was now covered in signs of military activity. Ships in orbit, weapons, platforms being constructed, an entire planet preparing for war. If we destroy their fleet, they will build another one. If we kill their soldiers, they will train more. If we bomb their cities, they will dig deeper and keep fighting. They do not surrender just because the situation is bad. They do not give up just because they are losing. They fight until they win, or until they are all dead. She let the silence stretch for a moment. There is one more thing I must tell you. Something that may be the most important factor of all. The display changed to show a human face. Just an ordinary face, neither young nor old, neither beautiful nor ugly. But the eyes in that face held something that was hard to define. Something fierce. Something that refused to quit. Humans have a psychological trait that is rare in intelligent species. They call it spite. It is the willingness to harm oneself in order to harm an enemy, to accept a bad outcome for yourself if it means the enemy gets an even worse outcome. She showed examples. Soldiers throwing themselves on grenades to save their companions. Pilots crashing their damaged aircraft into enemy positions. Resistance fighters continuing to fight even when there was no hope of winning. Most species calculate the costs and benefits of any action. If the costs are too high, they stop. Humans do not always follow this logic. If they believe the cause is just, they will pay any price. They will sacrifice everything. They would rather die fighting than live defeated. She turned off all the displays and stood alone in the center of the chamber. My recommendation is simple. We should end this war immediately. We should offer terms that the humans can accept. We should withdraw from their space and leave them alone. There was an uproar in the chamber. Multiple counselors spoke at once, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of outrage and disbelief. Surrender to primitives? Impossible. Our honor would never recover. We have never retreated from any enemy. High Arbiter Velkoth raised his hand for silence. When the chamber was quiet, he spoke. Scholar Malus 7, you are suggesting that we cannot defeat the humans, that the greatest military power in galactic history cannot overcome a species that has been traveling among the stars for less than a century. Is that correct? No, High Arbiter. I am not saying we cannot defeat them. I am saying that defeating them would cost more than it is worth. She brought up a new display. Projections, numbers, casualty estimates. If we commit our full military resources to this war, we can probably destroy the human species. We can glass their planets, hunt down their ships, and eliminate every last one of them. But the cost would be immense. We would lose thousands of ships. We would lose millions of soldiers. We would spend resources that would take decades to replace. She highlighted specific numbers. And even then, victory is not certain. Humans are creative. They adapt quickly. They might develop weapons we cannot counter. They might find allies among species that have grudges against the Concord. They might find ways to hurt us that we cannot predict. She looked at Velkoth directly. Is one planet worth that risk? Are some crystals worth the lives of millions of our citizens? I do not think so. Velkoth was silent for a long moment. His skin shifted through colors that the other counselors could not quite interpret. He was thinking, considering, weighing options. Then his skin settled into a color that all of them recognized. It was the color of authority, the color of a decision made. No, he said. We will not surrender. We will not retreat. The Concord has ruled this galaxy for 11,000 years because we have never shown weakness to any enemy. If we back down now, every primitive species in the galaxy will think they can challenge us. He stood taller, his confidence returning. We will send the Grand Fleet. Every ship we have. We will end this war with overwhelming force. And we will make an example of the humans that will be remembered for centuries. Scholar Malus 7 closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, there was something sad in her expression. I understand, High Arbiter. I have given you my analysis and my recommendation. The decision is yours to make. She paused. But I must add one final warning. The humans have a saying that I have found in their cultural records. They say, the most dangerous enemy is one who has nothing to lose. If we push the humans to the point where they believe they will be destroyed anyway, there is no telling what they might do. Species with their psychology do not go quietly. They do not accept their fate peacefully. They make their enemies pay a terrible price. She looked around the chamber at the assembled leaders of galactic civilization. May the universe have mercy on us all. She disappeared, and the chamber was left in silence. One by one, the counselors voted to support Velkoth's decision. The Grand Fleet would be deployed. The humans would be crushed. The war would be ended, one way or another. But some of the counselors, as they cast their votes, remembered the images that Scholar Malus 7 had shown. They remembered the planet of danger, the history of violence, the fierce eyes of the human face. and they wondered if they were making a terrible mistake. Far away, on Earth, in the command center beneath Switzerland, Admiral Tanaka received intelligence reports about the council meeting. Human spies had managed to record much of what was said. She listened to Scholar Malus 7's presentation and nodded slowly. "They understand us now," she said to her officers. "At least one of them does. But it is too late. They have already made their choice." She pulled up displays showing the preparations being made across human space. Ships being built, weapons being manufactured, plans being finalized. They think they will end this war with their grand fleet. They think they will overwhelm us with numbers. They do not understand that we have been preparing for this moment for 80 years, since the day we first detected alien signals and realized we were not alone in the universe. She smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew exactly what was coming and had accepted it. We knew this day would come. We knew that someday someone would try to conquer us. So we prepared. We hid our preparations. We made ourselves look weaker than we were. And we waited. She looked at her officers. Now the waiting is over. Now we show them what humanity can really do. She pressed a button, activating communication systems across human space. "All units. This is Admiral Tanaka. The Concorde is sending their entire fleet against us. This is the moment we have been preparing for. Execute Operation Prometheus." Across human space, ships launched from hidden bases. Weapons came online that had never been used before. Soldiers who had trained their entire lives for this moment moved into position. The humans were ready. The Concorde did not know it yet, but they were about to face the full fury of the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever known, and they were not prepared for what was coming. The Grand Fleet of the Galactic Concorde was the largest military force ever assembled in the history of the galaxy. 12,000 warships from all 12 member species gathered in one place for the first time in 11,000 years. Together, they carried 40 million crew members. Their weapons could destroy planets. Their shields could withstand any known attack. Their engines could cross the galaxy in weeks. The fleet had never been used at full strength. There had never been a threat that required it. Until now. High Arbiter Velkoth stood on the bridge of the Eternal Mandate, the largest ship ever built. It was nearly 50 kilometers long, a mobile fortress that could carry 1 million soldiers and enough weapons to conquer an entire civilization by itself. From this ship, Velkoth would command the destruction of humanity. He looked out at the assembled fleet through the massive windows of his bridge. Ships stretched as far as he could see, their lights blinking like a field of stars. It was a beautiful sight. It was also a terrifying one. "Signal all ships," he ordered. "We jump to Earth in 1 hour. Prepare for final assault." The fleet made its final preparations. Weapons were tested. Shields were calibrated. Soldiers were briefed on their missions. Everything was ready. 1 hour later, 12,000 ships vanished into hyperspace. They emerged in the Sol system, the home of humanity. Earth hung before them, a small blue marble surrounded by the blackness of space. Velkoth had seen images of this planet before, but seeing it with his own eyes was different. It looked so fragile, so weak. He scanned the space around them. The human fleet was there, waiting for them, just as he expected. What he did not expect was how small it was. 300 ships, perhaps 350. That was all that remained of humanity's space forces. The battles at Kepler 442b and other colonies had destroyed the rest. This was everything they had left, against 12,000 Concorde vessels. Velkoth felt his skin brighten with confidence. This was going to be easy. The humans had fought well, but their luck had run out. There was no strategy, no trick, no clever plan that could overcome odds of 40 to 1. "Open a channel to the human fleet," he ordered. "I want to give them one last chance to surrender." The communication link was established. On his screen, he saw the face of Admiral Tanaka. She looked older than she had in her first transmission, months ago. There were dark circles under her eyes. She looked tired, but she did not look defeated. "High Arbiter Velkoth," she said. "We meet at last. I wish it were under better circumstances. Admiral Tanaka, I see you have gathered all your remaining ships. This is your last chance. Surrender now, and I will spare your civilian population. Continue to fight, and Earth will be destroyed." Tanaka's expression did not change. "That is a generous offer. I have a counteroffer. Velkoth was surprised. A counteroffer? You have 300 ships. I have 12,000. What could you possibly offer me? Your survival. The word hung in the air for a moment. Then Velkoth laughed. It was a harsh sound, full of contempt. My survival? Admiral, I think you misunderstand your situation. You are the ones who need to worry about survival. No, High Arbiter. You are the one who does not understand. Tanaka leaned forward slightly. You brought everything you have. Your entire fleet. Every ship from every species. That tells me something. What does it tell you? It tells me that you are scared. You have seen what we can do with limited resources. Now you are afraid of what we might do with our full strength. So you brought everything, hoping that sheer numbers would be enough. Velkoth's skin flickered with irritation. I am not scared of you, human. I am simply being thorough. Then you should have been more thorough. Tanaka gestured to someone off-screen. Let me show you something. The display changed. Now Velkoth could see a room behind Tanaka. It was filled with screens showing status displays, technical readouts, and flashing indicators. In the center of the room stood a young human woman in a military uniform. This is Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen, Tanaka said. She is in charge of a program called Project Nemesis. Sarah, would you like to explain what that is? The young woman stepped forward. Unlike Tanaka, she was smiling. It was not a pleasant smile. Hello, High Arbiter. Project Nemesis is our insurance policy. We started building it 80 years ago, when we first detected your civilization and realized that you might be a threat. We have been working on it ever since. She gestured at the screens behind her. What you see here are launch control systems for 300,000 nuclear missiles. These are not ordinary missiles. They are slow, stealthy, long-range weapons designed for one purpose: to reach enemy planets and destroy them. Velkoth felt something cold in his chest. What are you saying? I am saying that we have been launching these missiles for weeks. They are currently traveling through space, moving toward every inhabited world in Concord territory. They are hidden among debris. They have no energy signatures. Your sensors cannot detect them. She pulled up a display showing projected trajectories. In approximately 6 months, these missiles will reach their targets. Every major Concord world, every species capital, every population center. 300,000 nuclear weapons, each one powerful enough to destroy a city. Velkoth stared at the display. His mind raced to understand what he was seeing. This is a bluff. You cannot possibly have that many weapons. We have been building them since before you knew we existed. We put most of our resources into weapons production instead of ships. Did you ever wonder why our fleet was so small? This is why. We were building something else. Tanaka spoke again. Here is the situation, High Arbiter. If you destroy Earth, those missiles continue on their course. They cannot be recalled. They cannot be stopped. There is no self-destruct code. They will reach their targets and they will detonate. Her voice was calm, almost conversational. We have calculated the effects. Approximately 60 to 70% of your total population will die. Maybe more. Certainly enough to end your civilization permanently. The galactic concord will collapse. The 12 species will spend the next 1,000 years fighting over the ruins. Velkoth's skin had gone pale. He could not believe what he was hearing. This was madness. No species would do this. No species would threaten to destroy itself just to hurt its enemies. But then he remembered what Scholar Malus 7 had told him. About human spite. About their willingness to accept terrible outcomes for themselves if it meant worse outcomes for their enemies. They would do this. They absolutely would do this. What do you want? He asked. His voice was not as steady as before. We want to live, Tanaka said simply. That is all we have ever wanted. We did not start this war. We did not want this war. All we wanted was a home among the stars and the right to exist. She spread her hands. So here is my offer. You leave. Not just Earth, not just this system. You leave all human space. Every world we have colonized, every station we have built, everything. You recognize our territory as sovereign and independent. You sign a treaty promising to leave us alone. And in exchange, we transmit the deactivation codes for the missiles. They stop, and your worlds live. It is that simple. Velkoth was silent for a long moment. His advisors on the bridge were looking at him with fear in their eyes. No one knew what to say. No one had ever faced a situation like this. "You are asking me to surrender," he said finally. "No, I am asking you to make peace. There is a difference. Surrender means we take something from you. Peace means we both get to keep what we have. You keep your civilization. We keep our lives. Everyone wins. And if I refuse? If I call your bluff and destroy Earth anyway?" Tanaka's eyes grew hard. "Then we both lose. Your fleet kills 8 billion humans. Our missiles kill 200 billion of your people. And in 1,000 years, archaeologists from some other species will dig through the ruins of both our civilizations and wonder what went wrong." She leaned closer to the screen. "Is that what you want, High Arbiter? To be remembered as the leader who destroyed the greatest civilization in galactic history, because you were too proud to make peace with primitives?" Velkoth said nothing. His skin shifted through a dozen colors as he struggled with emotions he had never felt before. Fear, doubt, uncertainty. These were not feelings that the High Arbiter of the Galactic Concord was supposed to have. "I need time to consult with the Council," he said finally. "Of course. We can wait. We have been waiting for 80 years. A few more hours will not matter." The communication ended. On the bridge of the Eternal Mandate, chaos erupted. Advisors shouted at each other. Captains demanded to know what was happening. Officers tried to verify whether the human claims could be true. Velkoth ignored all of them. He walked to the window and stared out at the small blue planet that had caused all of this trouble. He tried to understand how things had gone so wrong. The humans should have been simple. They should have been easy to crush. They were primitives from a small world, with a short history and limited technology. Everything about them suggested weakness, but everything about them had been wrong. They were not weak. They were dangerous. More dangerous than anything the Concord had ever faced. Not because of their ships or their weapons, but because of what they were willing to do. They were willing to destroy themselves to win. They were willing to take the entire galaxy down with them, rather than accept defeat. This was not rational. This was not civilized. This was not how intelligent species were supposed to behave. But it was very, very human. Velkoth contacted the Council of 12. He explained the situation. He showed them the human claims and the evidence supporting them. He asked for their guidance. The debate lasted for hours. Some counselors wanted to call the human bluff. They argued that no species would actually destroy itself. The missiles were probably fake, or the numbers were exaggerated, or there was some way to stop them. They refused to believe that the humans would really go through with it. Others were not so sure. They remembered Scholar Malus 7's warnings. They remembered the reports from Kepler 442b, where human soldiers had fought and died in hopeless situations rather than surrender. They believed that humans were exactly crazy enough to do what they threatened. "It does not matter if the threat is real or not," argued Axiom Prime, a Synthari representative. "What matters is whether we are willing to gamble our entire civilization on that question. If we are wrong, if the missiles are real, and we destroy Earth anyway, then everything we have built for 11,000 years will be gone. But if we retreat, we show weakness," countered Counselor Dreth. "Every other species in the galaxy will see that we back down. They will think they can challenge us too. And if we do not retreat, there may be no galaxy left for anyone to challenge us in." The argument went back and forth. Neither side would give in. Neither side could convince the other. Finally, Velkoth exercised his authority as High Arbiter. He called for a vote. The vote was close. 7 species voted to retreat and make peace. 5 voted to attack and take the risk. The majority had spoken. The Concord would withdraw. Velkoth opened the communication channel to the human fleet one more time. "Admiral Tanaka, the Council has made its decision. We will accept your terms. Our fleet will withdraw from human space. We will recognize your territory and sign a treaty of peace." Tanaka nodded. Her expression did not change, but Velkoth thought he saw something relax in her shoulders. Relief, perhaps, or maybe just exhaustion. "A wise decision, High Arbiter. I am glad we could resolve this without further bloodshed. Send us the deactivation codes. They will be transmitted as soon as your fleet is out of our system. You understand that we need to see your ships leave before we disable our weapons." Velkoth understood. He did not like it, but he understood. "Very well. We will withdraw immediately. But know this, Admiral. The Concord has a long memory. This day will not be forgotten. I hope you do remember it, High Arbiter. I hope you remember that we tried to avoid this war. We asked only for the right to live in peace. You chose to threaten us instead. Everything that happened after that was a consequence of your choice. She paused. Remember that the next time you consider threatening a species just because they are smaller than you, size is not everything. Strength is not everything. What matters is what you are willing to do to survive. The communication ended. The Grand Fleet of the Galactic Concord, the greatest military force ever assembled, turned around and left. 12,000 ships jumped back into hyperspace, leaving Earth and its people behind. On the planet below, 8 billion humans watched them go. Some cheered, some cried, some simply stood in silence, unable to believe what had happened. They had won. Somehow, against impossible odds, they had won. In her command center, Admiral Tanaka finally allowed herself to sit down. She was more tired than she had ever been in her life. The stress of the past months, the weight of responsibility for her entire species, all of it crashed down on her at once. Lieutenant Commander Chen approached her. "Admiral, are you all right?" Tanaka laughed. It was a strange sound, somewhere between relief and disbelief. "I honestly do not know," she said. "I think I might be. I think we all might be. For the first time in months, I think we might actually be all right. The missiles, they were real, right? We really had 300,000 of them. Of course they were real. Every single one. We spent 80 years building them. We would have used them too, if we had to." Chen was quiet for a moment. Would we really have done it? Would we really have destroyed their worlds, knowing they would destroy ours? Tanaka looked at her young officer. She thought about the question carefully before answering. "I hope we will never have to find out. But yes, we would have done it. We would have sent a message to the universe that would echo for eternity. Do not threaten humanity. Do not try to exterminate us. Because if you do, we will make you pay a price so terrible that no one will ever consider trying again." She stood up and walked to the window. She could see the stars outside, the same stars that had once seemed so far away. That is what we are, Chen. That is what we have always been. Survivors. We do not give up. We do not surrender. We fight until we win, or until there is nothing left to fight with. And if we have to burn the universe down to protect our people, we will do it without hesitation. She turned back to face the room. "Now, let us make sure this peace holds. We have a treaty to negotiate." 3 months later, the Treaty of Sol was signed on a neutral station in the space between human and Concord territory. Representatives from all 12 Concord species attended, along with the leaders of the United Nations Space Command. The terms were simple. Humanity would control a sphere of space 50 light-years in diameter, centered on Earth. The Concord would not enter this space without permission. In exchange, humanity transmitted the deactivation codes for all 300,000 missiles and promised to live in peace with their galactic neighbors. When the codes were verified and the missiles stopped, there was a collective sigh of relief across Concord space. The threat was over. The crisis had passed. But things had changed. They had changed forever. The Concord had learned something about themselves. They had learned that they were not as invincible as they thought. They had learned that their size and power could not protect them from a determined enemy. They had learned that there were limits to what they could do. And they had learned about humanity, about what humans were capable of, about how far they would go to survive. The galaxy would never see humans the same way again. That was exactly what Admiral Tanaka had wanted. 50 years had passed since the Treaty of Sol was signed. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The Galactic Concord still existed, but it was different now. It had learned hard lessons from the war with humanity. It had been forced to question beliefs that had gone unchallenged for thousands of years. High Arbiter Velkoth was long gone. He had been removed from power shortly after the treaty was signed. The council decided that his judgment could no longer be trusted. He had almost led them to destruction because of his arrogance and pride. He spent his remaining years in quiet isolation, writing his memoirs and wondering where he had gone wrong. The new High Arbiter was Axiom Prime, the Synthari artificial intelligence who had argued for peace during the crisis. Under his leadership, the Concord took a different approach to the galaxy. Instead of demanding obedience from smaller species, they began to offer partnership, Instead of treating other civilizations as potential threats to be controlled, they treated them as potential allies to be cultivated. This change was not just about being nice. It was about survival. The war with humanity had proven that the old ways did not work. Superior numbers and technology were not enough to defeat a determined enemy. The Concord needed new approaches, new ideas, new ways of thinking about the universe. And for all of that, they found themselves looking at humans. Humanity had continued to grow during the 50 years of peace. Their sphere of space had expanded, slowly and carefully. As they colonized new worlds and built new stations, their technology had advanced rapidly, catching up with and in some areas surpassing Concord levels. Their population had increased, spreading across dozens of planets. But the most important changes were not physical. They were cultural. The war had unified humanity in ways that nothing else ever had. Before the Concord's attack, humans had still been divided into nations and factions, still arguing among themselves about politics and resources and ideology. The threat from outside had changed that. It had reminded them that they were all one species, all in this together, all dependent on each other for survival. After the war, humanity had created new institutions to manage their expanding civilization. The United Nations Space Command became the United Human Federation, a democratic government that represented all of humanity. Old conflicts were not forgotten, but they were put aside. There were more important things to worry about now. There was also a change in how humans saw themselves. Before the war, many humans had felt small and insignificant in the vast universe. They had wondered if they truly belonged among the stars. The war had answered that question definitively. They belonged. They had earned their place. They had faced the greatest power in the galaxy and survived. This gave humans a new confidence. Not arrogance, not pride, but a quiet certainty in their own worth. They did not need to prove themselves to anyone anymore. They knew who they were and what they could do. The relationship between humanity and the conquered evolved over the 50 years of peace. At first, there was almost no contact. Both sides were still recovering from the war. Both sides were suspicious of the other. Trade was minimal, diplomacy was formal and cold, and neither side really understood the other. But slowly, things changed. It started with small exchanges. Scientists who wanted to share research. Artists who were curious about alien cultures. Merchants who saw opportunities for profit. These individuals crossed the border between human and conquered space, and they brought back stories. The stories were surprising. Concord citizens who visited human worlds found a species that was not what they expected. Yes, humans could be violent. Yes, they had a dangerous history, but they were also creative, curious, friendly, and warm. They welcomed visitors. They shared their culture openly. They seemed genuinely interested in learning about other species. Humans who visited Concord worlds found something similar. The species of the Concord were not the cold, authoritarian empire that they had imagined. They were diverse and complex, with their own arts and traditions and dreams. They had built something remarkable over 11,000 years. They had much to teach and much to offer. Understanding grew. Fear began to fade. The galaxy started to realize that humans and the Concord did not have to be enemies. 45 years after the treaty, a proposal was made. It came from the Synthari, the artificial intelligence species that had always been the most logical and far-sighted members of the Concord. Humanity should join the Concord as a full member species, Axiom Prime announced to the Council. They have proven themselves. They have shown that they can contribute to galactic civilization. It is time to welcome them as equals. The debate was fierce. Many counselors remembered the war. They remembered the fear, the losses, the threat of total annihilation. How could they accept the species that had almost destroyed them? Others argued the opposite. Precisely because humans were so dangerous, it was better to have them as allies than as enemies. Bringing them into the Concord would give them a stake in galactic peace. It would tie their interests to the interests of everyone else. The vote was held. It was unanimous. For the first time since the Concord was founded, a new species was invited to join. Admiral Yuki Tanaka had retired years ago. She was now in her 80s, living quietly on a small farm in Japan on Earth. She had done her duty. She had saved her species. Now she wanted to spend her remaining years in peace, growing vegetables and watching the stars at night. When the invitation came, She was asked to come out of retirement one more time. The United Human Federation wanted her to represent humanity at the ceremony where they would officially join the Galactic Concord. She agreed. The ceremony was held on a space station at the exact midpoint between Earth and the Concord capital. Representatives from all 12 Concord species attended, along with a delegation from humanity. It was the largest gathering of galactic leaders in history. Tanaka stood at the center of the Great Hall, looking out at the assembled beings. She was old now, her hair white and her face lined with wrinkles. She walked with a cane and her hands shook slightly, but her eyes were still sharp, still fierce, still holding that spark that had frightened Velkoth so many years ago. She began her speech. 50 years ago, we were at war. The greatest power in the galaxy tried to destroy us, and we fought back with everything we had. We used weapons that could have ended civilization itself. We were willing to burn the universe down rather than accept defeat. She paused, looking around the hall. I am not here to apologize for that. I would do it again if I had to. Protecting our people is not something we should ever be sorry for. There was tension in the room. Some of the counselors shifted uncomfortably, but I am here to say something else. Something that is just as true. She took a deep breath. We never wanted war. We wanted what everyone wants. A home, a future, a chance to live and grow and explore. We looked up at the stars and saw infinite possibility, and we reached for it with both hands. She smiled, and this time it was a warm smile, full of genuine feeling. You saw our weapons. You saw our soldiers. You saw how dangerous we could be. And you thought you knew us. You thought we were monsters. She shook her head. We are not monsters. We are survivors. There is a difference. Monsters hurt others because they enjoy it. Survivors hurt others because they have no choice. We fought you because you forced us to fight. If you had left us alone, we would have been happy to leave you alone. She looked at the Centauri representative, Axiom Prime, and nodded slightly. But that is the past. Today is about the future. Today is about what we can become when we choose to work together instead of against each other. She pulled out a small device and placed it on the podium in front of her. It was old and battered, clearly something that had been carried for many years. This is a recorder. My grandfather gave it to me when I was a little girl. He was a soldier in a war long ago, a war between human nations. He was captured by the enemy and held in a terrible prison camp. He suffered greatly, but he never gave up hope. She pressed a button, and a voice came from the device. An old man's voice, speaking in Japanese, with subtitles appearing in the air for the alien audience. Yuki, remember this. Enemies can become friends. It just takes time. The people who hurt me, their grandchildren, became my friends. The countries that fought each other became partners. Hate does not last forever. Only love lasts forever. Tanaka turned off the recorder. My grandfather was right. He made friends with people who had once been his enemies. He built bridges where there had been walls. He showed me that the worst conflicts can end in reconciliation, if both sides are willing. She looked around the hall one more time. The Concord and humanity were enemies. We hurt each other badly. We will carry the scars of that conflict for generations. But we do not have to let those scars define us. We can choose a different path. She straightened her back, standing as tall as her old body would allow. Humanity accepts this invitation to join the Galactic Concord. We will be your partners, your allies, and your friends. We will share our knowledge, our culture, and our dreams. We will work together to build a future that is better than the past. She paused. But I want to be clear about something. We will always be who we are. We will always fight for our people. We will always do whatever is necessary to survive. That will never change. Her eyes grew hard for just a moment. If anyone threatens us again, we will respond the same way we did before. We will make them pay a price they cannot imagine. That is not a threat. That is a promise. That is what we are. Then her expression softened. But we hope it will never come to that again. We hope that we have found a family among the stars. We hope that the future will be bright. She smiled, and this time her whole face lit up with genuine warmth. Thank you for welcoming us. We will try to make you proud. The hall was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, the applause began. It started with the Centauri, then spread to the other species. Even the ones who had voted against the war's end all those years ago were clapping. Even the ones who still feared humanity were acknowledging what they had witnessed. This was not a conquered species being absorbed into an empire. This was not a primitive culture being lifted up by advanced beings. This was an equal partnership, freely offered and freely accepted. The galaxy would never be the same. After the ceremony, there was a reception. Leaders from all 13 species mingled, talking, sharing drinks, getting to know each other. It was awkward at first, but gradually people began to relax. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen, now Admiral Chen, found herself standing next to Axiom Prime. They had met during the treaty negotiations 50 years ago, and had maintained a correspondence ever since. "You were right, you know," Chen said. "When you argued for peace all those years ago, you were the one who convinced the Council." Axiom Prime's holographic form flickered in what Chen had learned to recognize as a Synthari smile. "I simply calculated the probabilities. The risk of destruction was too high. Peace was the logical choice." Was that really all it was? Just logic? The Synthari was quiet for a moment. When it spoke again, its voice was softer. "No, it was not just logic. I studied your species very carefully during the war. I watched how you fought, how you died, how you refused to give up. And I realized something." "What?" "I realized that you were not so different from us. All intelligent life in the galaxy shares certain things. We all want to survive. We all want our children to have better lives than we did. We all look up at the stars and wonder what is out there." Axiom Prime turned to face her directly. "Your methods were different. Your history was different. But your dreams were the same as ours. That is why I believed peace was possible. That is why I pushed for it even when others wanted war." Chen nodded slowly. "And now we are partners. Now we are family. That is what the conquered is supposed to be. A family of species, working together, protecting each other. We had forgotten that over the millennia. We had become arrogant, thinking we were better than everyone else. Your people reminded us of what we were supposed to be." Chen laughed. "Is that what we did? I thought we just scared you into making peace." "Fear was part of it," Axiom Prime admitted. "But fear alone would not have lasted. True peace requires understanding. It requires recognizing that the other side has value, has worth, has something to contribute." The Synthari paused. "Your species has much to contribute. Your creativity, your adaptability, your determination. These are gifts that will benefit the entire galaxy. We are fortunate to have you as members of our family." Chen thought about this for a moment. Then she raised her glass. "To the future," she said. "To the future," Axiom Prime agreed. Across the room, Admiral Tanaka was having her own conversation. She was speaking with a young Draelith, whose skin shifted colors as they talked. "I want to understand something," the young Draelith said. "During the war, you were willing to destroy yourself to hurt us. Why? How could any species be willing to do that?" Tanaka considered the question carefully. "Because some things are more important than survival," she said finally. "Not many things, but some." "What things?" "Freedom, dignity, the right to exist on our own terms. These are things that humans have always fought for, even when the cost was terrible." She smiled sadly. "We learned a long time ago that there are fates worse than death. Being enslaved is worse. Being erased is worse. Having everything you built and everything you love destroyed while you watch helplessly, that is worse." She looked directly at the young Draelith. "When your leaders threatened to destroy us, they were not just threatening our lives. They were threatening everything we valued. Our history, our culture, our children's futures. We could not accept that. We would rather die fighting than live on our knees." The Draelith's skin shifted to colors that Tanaka did not recognize. She hoped it was understanding, not fear. "I think," the young alien said slowly, "that my people have learned more from yours in 50 years than we learned from anyone in the previous 1,000. You have taught us that we cannot simply demand obedience. We have to earn respect." "You have earned it," Tanaka said. "The fact that we are here, talking like this, means that your people have changed. The old Concord would never have invited us to join. The new Concord did. That matters." She reached out and touched the Draelith's arm gently. "We can help each other become better. That is what families do." The reception continued for hours. By the end, humans and aliens were laughing together, sharing stories, making plans, The tensions of the past were not forgotten, but they were being put aside, replaced by something new. It was the beginning of a new era for the galaxy. In the centuries that followed, humanity became one of the most valued members of the Galactic Concord. They brought new perspectives, new technologies, new ways of solving problems. Their creativity and adaptability helped the Concord overcome challenges that would have been impossible before. But they also brought something else, something that was harder to define but perhaps more important. They brought a reminder that power is not everything, that size does not determine worth, that the smallest species can overcome the greatest odds if they refuse to give up. And they brought a promise that they would always fight for their family, that they would protect the Concord just as fiercely as they had once fought against it, that anyone who threatened the beings they loved would face the full fury of the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever known. The Concord had ruled the stars for 11,000 years, but they had never been challenged, never been tested, never learned what they were truly capable of. Humanity had taught them, and in doing so, humanity had made the Concord stronger. Together, they would face whatever the universe had to offer. Together, they would reach for the stars. Together, they would build something that would last forever. And high above the celebration, the stars watched in silence. They had seen civilizations rise and fall. They had witnessed wars that burned entire worlds. They had observed the endless drama of intelligent life, struggling and fighting and sometimes, just sometimes, finding peace. The humans were new to this stage, but they had already made their mark. They had proven that they belonged among the stars, and the story was just beginning.